So again, welcome to FI Connects. Like I said, today is a very special version of FI Connects. It's going to be our first kind of voices from the field opportunity. I've been asking for the last couple of weeks in our feedback survey, if anyone would like to join and co-facilitate and share things that they've been thinking about, things they've been trying, and strategies that have been working for them in our time of remote learning and distance application. Not only as a coach, but possibly as educators working with students as well. So I'm going to introduce them in just a minute, but really quick, how FI Connects works. We encourage you to ask questions. Question asking is invited. Open-ended questions are very welcome and appreciated. Our goal is to really learn from one another. And there's more than one possible answer. So we encourage you to share, whether you want to grab the mic, to ask a question or share an idea, or drop that idea into our chat. We would love for you to share those ideas, and we know that sometimes questions might be asked and not answered, but we're going to do our best and we're going to try. All ideas are okay to share. This is an open forum. It's very informal, but our main goal is to continue to foster those relationships and creating some opportunities and times to be together. So last time we took the opportunity to kind of check in with one another. We were thinking about ways to promote how we communicate with each other, with our colleagues, how we're connecting possibly with reluctant teachers. We talked a little bit about something called the +1 rule. That was, what can I do this week and what can I do in the next 2 days to be able to meet that goal? You know, thinking simple, thinking realistically, and not feeling overwhelmed, and something that we can also model for the teachers that we support. We also talked a little bit about professional development guidelines, things that we can do to, again, be realistic, targeted, and make the most impact while keeping it simple. So if you're interested in the information from last time, you can find that YouTube link right there, and I'll go ahead and I'll drop it in the slide deck. That is where you'll find recordings of all past FI Connects sessions. So that is there for you. Likewise, if you're just joining us, we have an advanced shared PDF of our slides, and I'll drop that into the chat. So you'll have those in advance. So in your breakout rooms, you're asked, you know, how's it going? Introduce yourself, but also, you know, what's one thing that's working and something that's just not working, and in the hopes that, you know, we could engage and help one another and support each other, and also celebrate with each other things that are working. So missing human connection, isn't that so true? Right now it is very difficult to interact, engage. As a coach, you probably naturally walked around, right, in the classroom halls. You could pop into a room, you could, you know, you could have those conversations. Now things need to be scheduled, and Zoom links or Google meetings, and I mean it's very different. I like to say Seesaw is working, student engagement. It may not be where you're like, but you know, it's somewhere. It's hard because there's, you know, only so much that's within our control. We can do our very best, right? PLC meetings, human interaction is lacking. Time to work online, offering help. So I'm sure a lot of you are like, you're offering help, you're there, but you may not have a whole lot of takers, right? This is still so very new, and still trying to figure it out as we go. So again, thank you, one, for taking the risk and opening your mic up and talking and chatting in our breakout rooms, but then likewise for sharing, you know, things that are working, but also things that you're struggling with. We're continuing, you know, to try to find solutions for you all at the Friday Institute to try to support and help you all. So again, we're going to continue to do our best and in supporting you. So again, in the before you leave today, the feedback link that you'll receive, let us know, you know, what isn't working, and I can try to design future opportunities for us to focus on those things, because we want this to be relevant and in the moment and in the now as best as we can. So again, thank you for sharing. And like I said, today is a special FI Connects, because our main goal is to really share with one another things that are working, things that we're doing, so that we can be all in this together. And in light of that, I would like to welcome our co-facilitators. So we have Pamela. Pamela is joining us from Orange County, where she is a literacy coach and an adjunct professor at the University of Mount Olive. I also have joining me Brian. Brian is a technology facilitator at China Grove Middle. That's in the Rowan Salisbury School District. And you know me. So really excited that these folks not only are taking the risk and jumping in to share things that are working for them, things that they're doing, but they've just kind of just offered themselves to jump in. So I am going to ask them, what we're going to do is Pamela's going to share, and then Brian's going to share, and we're going to wrap up with kind of a quick hit question and interactivity with you all before we close out. So Pamela, are you there to unlock your mic and join us?
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. So I'm going to roll this over to you, and I will be driving for you. So
Okay,
feel free to tell us a little bit about yourself and go ahead and get started.
sure, certainly. My name is Pamela Fitzpatrick, and I started teaching in 1976. And I've taught for most of my career. I took a pretty long maternity leave. I had 4 children. And just how much do I like it? Well, 3 of our 4 children are teachers. So I think they kind of picked up on the idea that teaching was a very good profession. My main passion is teaching reading. I'm an English teacher, also and a history teacher, but I'm really a reading specialist and a literacy coach. And I worked on my PhD at UNCG and wrote it about empathy in education with the implications of relating to 3 people. Um, and it's been an interesting ride. So I'm going to talk to you today about teaching reading to secondary students and how it's one of the most important things that you can do, and something that's really worth thinking about. So I'll just tell you a little story. So I was teaching one of my jobs. I was a high school English teacher, and I was teaching 12th graders, and I decided to just give them an informal reading inventory each, which I did. And I had about half of the class was significantly below level in reading, and the other part of the class was somewhat below level in reading. And the children that were, the young people that were significantly below level were somewhere at the 5th grade level in 12th grade. So that's going to make it hard for a student like that to really function well. And just the whole reading piece is where we can really make a difference, work towards closing the achievement gap. And to me, it's a civil rights issue. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about mainly males. So I did research with Elon in 2008, 2009 on boys and writing, young men in writing. And I've been really researching teaching males since that time. But what I'm saying too would pertain to females also. But something with that I found out with teaching young men is that the topics that they are interested in, you're really going to have to dig to find out which topics they are. So something that I did that was helpful was I did a focus group, and I found out what the students were interested in. And things that popped up were different periods of history: American Revolution, Vietnam War, World War I, World War II, mechanical things, and sports, which is not a big surprise, as well as kind of funny topics. Now, does that mean that we don't have a boy that could read Jane Austen and love it? Of course not. We have many boys that would read Jane Austen and love it, or read, Emily Bronte and love it. But what I was looking for was, what were they interested in reading? The other big push in looking at your reading materials for your students digitally is that they be reflective of the ethnicities and the races of the students, both the antagonists and the protagonists. So both the the main character that you're supposed to sympathize with, and the person who goes against the main character. And what I also found in doing the surveys and in working with students is that we needed to get books that were more than just stereotypical, or we shouldn't have books that are stereotypical of a certain race or ethnicity. So, for example, you might go into some book collections and all of the sports books about African American males are related to sports, all of the books. And that is not a good way to go. So it would be these complex characters who live in a variety of different places. They're not all inner city. That's racist. And you know that they would be student representative of the children in their lives and the young men in their lives. And then also what I found was that it was very helpful to get my struggling readers to write about their interests. Now, I just want to just tell you just this. So if it worked that giving students text that they can't read, that's well above their level, was going to grow them as a reader, every child in the country would be reading on level, because that's the way most classes are set up, particularly at the secondary level. So there's a class, there's a book, we're all reading the same book. But the fact is that students grow as readers when they can when they can read the text and get meaning from the text without stumbling over the words in the text. So does that mean give them baby books? No. But it means give students books that are just below level or just above level, or just above their level. Now I have to give just a but with that. If they are interested in the topic, they can probably read above level because they know the vocabulary, they're familiar, or if they're very familiar with the author, they know the kind of the sentence structure of that author, they know kind of the way his plots or her plots go. So I would just caution you about that. But my important point is, if it worked the way most schools are set up, reading textbooks, everyone's reading the same book or reading the same novel, we wouldn't have a reading problem in this country. And in certain classes that I teach, and probably in certain classes you teach too, you might have 10%, 20%, 30%, 40, 50, 60% of the students that are reading below level. So something to think about. Could we just go to the next slide, please? So just wanted to just talk a little bit more about a specific student. So a teacher called me and said he doesn't seem to care about any kind of reading I give him. He's not on, I don't think he's on level. And I tested him in word identification, listening comprehension, and silent reading comprehension, and he was at or above level in every area. And I just found out, and what he told me was that none of my world is not included in the curriculum. He felt his world wasn't included in the curriculum. I work in a rural county, and when I asked him about hunting, his vocabulary, his language, everything he said was extremely high level. And so I got him books with stories around hunting, magazines around hunting. And I told the teacher, he's pulling your leg. He can read just fine, just doesn't want to read what you've given him. So finding out the student's interest, what they'll like, and then providing that reading material, which even online is totally possible now. So the Audible link is available to you. And I know that Jacqueline included that with this PowerPoint. So we can get the texts that they need from there. The other point is that for the students that are struggling in reading, one of the big impediments is vocabulary. So remember that every teacher that's teaching vocabulary is teaching that student to read better. In a tech class, in any kind of the CTE classes, in a science class, a social studies class, any class that teaches vocabulary in a rich and full way is teaching that student to read better. Just as far as our students go, so a student that comes from a language-enriched home where the parents are talking to them and they have all these opportunities to speak, people listen to them, respond to them, speak lovingly and kindly to them, go to kindergarten with about 22,000 words. Children, I don't mean words, these are words they would understand. Children that come from homes where it's not language enriched, about 2,000. So the vocabulary gap is one of the biggest gaps in education, and it is intimately connected to the reading achievement gap. This vocabulary gap is intimately connected. So could we see the next slide, please, Jacqueline? So in working with young men, and this would pertain to young women too, what do you do when the student tells you they do not like to read and write? One thing would be to scaffold the text, but once you've scaffolded the text, the idea is to pull the scaffold away, okay? Another thing to just think about, importantly, for some, in some places, scaffolding the text or preparing the student to read is giving them an audible version. And just remember, if the student does not read the text himself or herself and extract meaning from the text, they are not going to grow as a reader. They can get information, they can learn things, but they're not going to grow as a reader. And the idea is that for every child to read so that they can be an informed person in their world and contribute to the highest level of their ability through extracting meaning from text. So just remember, scaffolding, you want to give the student a book and give them that information, but just take the scaffold away, because it cannot be that you walk a student through every page of the book. If you're doing that, the book's too hard. Okay, if you're doing that, the book is too hard. And just something that I found in my research with Elon is that using a film clip beforehand that's representative of the students that you're working with can really help introduce the text. And if you're reading a text that is of another time period, let's say you're reading having a book club with 6 students, and they're reading excerpts or Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank, or excerpts from Anne Frank, or an abridged version of Anne Frank. A film clip about that would be really helpful to the students. So that is what I would like to talk to you about today. But I'm really interested in your questions specifically about how to teach reading to children and to young men, young women too, in grades 6 through 12, when it's at a time when many people feel they should already know how to read and that they are not trained as reading teachers.
So we have a question that popped up in the chat. What suggestions do you have about learning students' interests?
Right. So I have one question that I ask the students. What do you like to do on the weekends? It's simple. It's to the point. And the first time I meet with them, I have them write that, an answer to that question. And they can list things they like to do on the weekends, because basically that tells me what their interests are, is what do you like to do on the weekends. The other thing is I do reading surveys. So I'm asking them specific questions about, what books they like to read, what topics they're interested in. And I basically give them a guarantee that if they tell me they're interested in a topic, I will get that book. I will get a book on that topic. So if I had one student a few years back, could not stop reading about the Vietnam War. So I got every book I could possibly get on that topic for that student. So yeah, I would ask them, I would have them write it down, and I would have them continue to, throughout the year, and then also share with each other what their interests are, because the students might find that they can become interested in what another student is reading.
We have another question in the chat. What is the best practice to find actual text around student interests if they're not in the library?
Okay. Well, I think every school should have books. Every classroom should have books in it. And I put my books in bins by topic. So I kind of have a book that's, and I'm not kidding about this, the card says explosions. And it's books where there's an explosion in the story. And that's a real go-getter for boy. Some of the students just really love that. But I would say in the classroom, if your PTA could give you, some money, or if there was you had some access to money around whatever course it is that you teach, the students could be borrowing, getting books from the classroom. I mean, classrooms should be overflowing with books, real books, not just books that are on the computer. Because remember, it's a different process, brain process, to read on a screen than to read a book. And for some students, one is easier than the other, but for a lot of our students, they'll do better with an actual book. So it says here, I have seen schools putting books in front of their building. Oh, well, that is fantastic. If students can go and borrow books like that, that would be wonderful. We also, when we knew this was happening, we sent the students all home with hard copies, again, thinking like Jacqueline said, it would only be 2 weeks. But so now we're really more dependent on the online versions. And this says, how do you provide specific work? Okay. Right. Okay. So what that person, Abby, please contact me, because I'd like to talk to you about that, more. But if the student needs work on phonics, they need to be in a small group where they receive direct instruction in phonics. So that would mean 6 to 8 students and a teacher. And in Orange County, every middle school student goes to an intervention period where they're given, like I teach a class of students who need help in fluency. So if there are students that need work with phonics and phonemic awareness, also, Abby, look at a place called Reading A to Z. Look at their free materials. They have some fantastic phonics and phonemic awareness materials that you can just access. Also, you can look at Tar Heel Reader, and that's exactly as it sounds, and you'd be able to find books that are for the readers that are working on phonemic awareness, phonics, and for also students that are coming from other countries and are learning to speak English. So after engaging students that think they don't agree, what's interest in topics?
Yeah, we've got time for maybe one more brief answer to the question that's there. How do we expand students' willingness once we understand their interests?
Right. So here it is. Students will get excited about things you are excited about. Like I have a small group working on The Count of Monte Cristo. Wow, I love that book. And I really sell it. And I tell the students there's going to be a prison break in here that you will not believe. So just, the same enthusiasm that you put into your content, you put into getting them to read something, and then just asking them about the reading and lots of talking to each other. Remember, the talking student is the learning student. They're talking to each other, they're talking to you, you're talking to them, you're working with small groups, but you want them talking to each other about their reading, and that will really help grow them as a reader.
Thank you so much. I know there's, if there's additional questions at the end, like if Pamela, you don't mind hanging out, we can continue to answer some questions.
That would be fine.
I wanted to kind of briefly, some strategies of where to start, or at least guide your teachers around some of these literacy questions. We want their students need to be reading daily, they need to be writing daily, and any ways that we can do that. sending home blank books or a digital space for students to fill with their writing or their doodles or their drawings, their poems, anything even simple as that, getting students to write and to read. And having those small group, synchronous conversations about, what are you reading? Getting students talking about it, maybe with a family member, or even, getting our younger students to read to their pet or stuffed animal, anything that's simple, but it gets them reading. Having them record themselves reading regularly is a great strategy, and having students engage with read-alouds. Dropping into the chat some resources for read-alouds. Again, I've also shared the PDF with folks, but any ways that we can engage our students, and for example, engaging them prior to reading or while they're reading a book or an article or a short story. Taking a virtual field trip or a museum tour might be a great way to engage them as well. So resource roundup, we have quite a few things. I think the easiest way for me to share all of these links with you is to grab the PDF of slides, and I'll link that again. All of those images are linked. So Google Expeditions, Natural History Museum, Discovery Ed. The Metropolitan Museum has a great resource for kids. And San Diego Zoo and the Aquarium of the Pacific actually have live cams or webcams on their animals and their tanks. So students can engage, they can continue to write, that can inspire some poetry, many, many different opportunities there. And likewise, additional reading resources for read-alouds. We've talked about EPIC on here in past FI Connect conversations, but National Science Teachers Association has some great reading resources. Audible is currently free. Also linked some resources for online books in Spanish for different age levels. International Children's Digital Library, and then even sometimes we have to think outside of the box. America's Test Kitchen for Kids. They have some great reading resources, recipes, things for kids to engage with and do, where they can read, they can engage, and then they can maybe write about their experience and what they've made. And likewise, the Weather Channel has a great resource for kids with encouraging literacy and some additional resources there. So with that being said, we want to give everybody an opportunity to take just a 20-second break to stretch, reflect, move, whatever it is you need, but please don't leave the webinar.
Get ready to the countdown.
It's important to model for your teachers that it's good to stand up, take a break, look at something else besides a screen after about 20 minutes of time. So we wanted to have a little bit of a brain break there, but I'm going to go ahead and roll it over to Brian. Brian's joining us where he is a tech facilitator at China Grove Middle School. How you doing, Brian?
I'm good. I hope everyone else is.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Brian, and we can jump into your content.
Okay, hey everyone, can you guys hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can, or in the video. Perfect. I am excited to be here with you guys this afternoon. I am currently a technology facilitator at China Grove. I'm in my 20th year of working in the public schools of North Carolina, so still going strong. I have been a previous STEM science teacher for 15 years and a technology facilitator is my 4th year. Last year, I dipped back into the classroom to do design thinking and challenge-based learning at North Rowan. So that was an awesome experience. And so a lot of what I've learned as a tech facilitator and as a design thinking challenge-based learning teacher, I'll be sharing with you today. When I was asked and thinking about doing this presentation, I thought what would be really important to share with my colleagues. And so one of the things that I think is really important, especially now that our world has been turned upside down, is that we remember just because a child is on a machine and they might be swiping through an iPad or, you know, punching buttons or appear to be listening to something on a device, doesn't mean he or she's engaged. As a tech facilitator, I kind of get stuck even now in these kind of epic, I call them confusion, you might call them maybe debates, where student says, well, I've turned it in, the teacher says they didn't get it, and the parent says, well, they're on the iPad all the time. So trying to figure that out and figuring out that engagement. So it's been interesting now that we're doing remote learning. Liz Kolb has a really great book I'd recommend if you're looking for something to read. Just because a kid is on a device, it doesn't mean they're engaged in learning. My 8-year-old looks busy on his device all the time, but he may or may not be doing learning. So I always have to check that out. So let's keep that in mind as we go forward. And Jacqueline, if you'll give me a click. When we went to remote learning and wrote in Salisbury, and I saw this in the chat earlier, people that sometimes had always avoided us and those of us that are support and coaches, all of a sudden they found a new way to connect with us. And a lot of my teachers were wanting to use tools. And so I had to remind them, we have some district approved tools we support, but we need to develop consideration for all these great tools that were now available for free. And so I would encourage you, whether you're a technology coach, an instructional coach, or other support position, media coordinator, to kind of use this to guide you when we look at what tools we're using. Is it a good way to connect our student to learning? Does it engage them? Another thing is access and equity. Do all students have access to the tool? I'm in a middle school, and some of the tools my teachers wanted to use, my 6th graders can't use because of their age and COPA. And so we had to kind of figure out how we worked with that. Another thing is, how will students learn to use that tool? If we're not there with them right now to walk through in the face-to-face setting, how would I teach a new tool to a student? And if they struggle, what will we do to support them? I don't know if now's the time when you want to introduce 20 new tools. I wouldn't support that necessarily as someone who tries to clean up and work through all that when their teachers do it. But it might be a good time to introduce one new tool. The other thing is, how do students share the work they create with you? That gets to be a huge issue. What is that workflow? Is it something that is easily accessible through Google Classroom, Canvas, Seesaw? And then, can all students use the tool equitably? And we're finding some huge digital gaps, even though we've been one-to-one for 6 years now. Some of our students are very proficient and can teach me things, and others of our students have trouble logging in. So we have to consider all that. So I would say keep that in mind as you're working with the tools that are now free for a lot of us, and to help your teachers develop that. And if we can go to the next slide. Another person I would highly recommend you guys get to know and follow on social media, Michael Cohen. He's called the Tech Rabbi. He has this awesome book. It's called Educated by Design. And it really guides a lot of where we're going to go with the rest of this presentation. We have to see technology as a catalyst for materializing our imagination other than the method to digitize the status quo. So if I take a worksheet and put it in Google Classroom, all I've done is put that status quo in a different place. And so with that, what I want us to think about, we have a golden opportunity with us being at remote learning the way that we are. We can go ahead and think about some things. I'm a chemistry teacher by training, so I think of this as like a giant lab. Let's go ahead and try some things that we might not be able to try in the 4th quarter in our classroom. And so if we'll go to the next slide, that's where I want us to think about our students. Are they consumers or creators? And when I thought about what I had experienced in my 20 years of public education teaching, you know, I think about what our consumer type education do. Our students, they take in information. Most of the measurements are usually compliant related. Did they learn the information? Meaning, can they spit it out in the form I gave it to them back, whether it's an end of course test or a test I give in my room or some type of assessment. That is designed to get a convergence in what students learn. We want them to have some basic information in the consumer model. My concern and what I saw last year when I went to North Rowan High School is that's not really preparing our students for this unknown future that they're going to have. When they get ready to go into the workplace, over the course of their lives, they're going to have a lot of jobs that you and I don't even imagine could exist right now. Yes, Dana, it's a lot related to the SAMR model. You're exactly right. And so when I was at North last year, we did entire creation with our students. And that was hard because we had to change our mindsets. What we do when our students become creators, they construct their own learning with scaffold support from us. We see that what the teacher does really begins to be a lot of what we do as coaches. We give our students complex problems that they solve in authentic ways that we would see in what we would call the real world. We have a divergence that our students learn different things, but what they learn serves them very well, and that they get the skills they need to adapt to an evolving world. And that's what I love about having our students as creators. And if we could go to the next slide. So when our students become creators and designers, they get student choice. They don't just have to take that 20 question multiple choice test. They also have equitable access for students that they access in a way that makes sense to them. When I went to North Rowan last year, it's one of the schools that has been really targeted for intervention, and potentially it's a restart school. And so a lot of these kids had had a history of academic challenges. They had not been as successful. And so with the model that we used with them, we had kids as sophomores. And if you've ever taught high school, you know, high schoolers, there can be a tough group to win over. But I had 10th graders who said for the first time since elementary school, they were excited about coming to school. They were excited about what they were learning because they saw value in what they were learning. Some of our parents, and these are parents, honestly, that we all know that sometimes are very stressful for administration to work with because they're not always in support of what the school's doing. And we had parents post on social media that they were really excited about these changes because their child loved going to school for the first time since like kindergarten. And so when we think about what we have the power to do, if we move to a creator designer mindset, we can teach our kids a lot of these skills that I think we all agree are super important. Some people call them soft skills. I really like to call them necessary skills. Critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity skills. I don't call it creativity because a lot of people think creativity means it's cute and adorable. I want our kids to be creative, meaning they can take things and apply them in new ways to create something new and innovative. Student agency. Are students able to do what they need to do on their own or with minimal support? Problem solving. Can they solve complex problems? Because all these drive what we're doing. And then do they know how to curate information? And later on, I think Jacqueline's going to share a great curation tool with you. So just be kind of on the lookout for that. It changes our role as teachers to that of a Tumblr. Do you guys, if you know what a Tumblr is, put that in the chat and let's see if you guys knew what that is. I know it confused me too. I wasn't really sure. I gave us a good definition. A Tumblr was a person, I like that, Becca. A Tumblr is a person who connects other people together. And it used to be actually a position. If you guys are familiar with the stories of how people in the Hamptons would go and spend their entire summers living in the Hamptons, and they were usually very affluent families. There were these peoples who made their whole job was to connect, people who didn't know each other with similar interest or complementary interest. And so that was one of the things that we see when we move to creators and designers. The teacher becomes a person who helps to make things happen, that connects people with other people as needed, so those people can accomplish their purposes. We could go to the next slide, please. Now here I have several different examples, because I don't want you to think I'm here just giving you some fly in the sky speech. These are from my blog, and each of these are a link to things that our students have done, whether when I was at North Rowan or at China Grove Middle School. The first one, and I would encourage you when you guys get a chance to visit some of these, I had 3 students that wrote this beautiful poem, and it's called Let America Become Its Dream. And North Rowan is about 70% non-white students. And so in working with these students, they weren't initially sure what they were going to do for rewriting. We had this assignment where they had to take a work of literature and rewrite it or remix it, as we called. And they weren't sure what they were going to do. So we sat down and we talked about some of just what's going on in their life. And they were talking about these 3 students were African American and multiracial. And they talked about how they had experienced racism. And so they got some inspiration from Maya Angelou, and they took this poem and wrote it themselves. And we took them to perform it in a place in our community where other people could use it. At the time, we took this particular group to a couple of nursing homes and retirement homes, and they were able to share their poem. But I would encourage you to really check it out because it is awesome. Another thing is we have CCAC students, which are students typically who may be confined to wheelchairs, and maybe they have some other physical challenges. And in our system, we call those CCAC students. But my students were charged with coming up with a project that benefited people who typically were overlooked or marginalized. And so I had this group, it was amazing, that realized that we had pep rallies at our school for our football players, for our basketball team, for all our different athletes. And they're like, why don't we have those for our CCAC kids? And so I had a group of 6 students who went and organized this huge pep rally. It was the day before our local Special Olympics. And they organized this amazing, like, school-wide pep rally. And it was incredible. They had to coordinate with the principal, with the teachers, with the CCAC students. They had to go and get to know the CCA students, and they made individual posters. So when those students came in the gym, the whole school was in there, and they were announced and they were carried out with this awesome poster. It was like being at the Olympics. It was amazing. And so our students were really recognized for their awesomeness. They played a basketball game, and I have a link where you can go watch some videos on that and see how they did it. But I actually started crying during it because I still get emotional. Because I had a young man who is notoriously written up, in trouble, and has lots of issues. And he tries to give one persona, but deep down, I know he has a huge heart. And he stopped during the game and went and gave the ball to one of the kids that was in a wheelchair and walked him up the court and let the kid shoot in front of the whole school. And that kid's parent that was in the wheelchair posted, it was awesome because the first time his son felt like he was part of a community and of the school, and he didn't feel different because he had a disability. And all that came because our kids took the time to organize this. So it was pretty incredible. We did some other examples here I have. and some other blogs. These are all my personal blogs, so feel free to look them out. The last one I'll call your attention to is Creation in the Classroom. This year, when I went back to China Grove, I purposely went to work with my math teachers on doing design and creation, because oftentimes our math teachers feel like a lot of what we do doesn't apply to them. And so I have 2 videos there, actual footage in the classroom. And if you watch the first one that says Creation in the Classroom, I want you to notice just the field of the classroom. As you look around, what do you see? And I'm going to let you guys in on a secret that that classroom is not an AIG classroom. It's actually the group of what we would call EC students, the way they're clustered. And so, but these kids were so actively designing a video where they talked about how to solve their own math problem with rates. And it was amazing. The last link shows a video of where that teacher, Miss Angela Remy, is working with our students. I wanted you to see actual footage. And so check that out after that and kind of see how that all works. And that's all from this design and creation. If we could go to the next slide. And so I have 2 activities that you guys are welcome to take. One is the design background for an iPad. I did this with our 6th graders. And this is a Google Doc. It's a hyperdoc that you're welcome to take and use. And they took the time using the design thinking process, which really focuses on that empathy that Pamela had talked about earlier, and so important. But our 6th graders went through the design thinking process and designed backgrounds for their partner. It's pretty amazing to see how all this came out. And so that's a hyperdoc you're welcome to take and use. And then the last, or the middle link, is one that incorporates stories or novels into design thinking. I had a 7th grade ELA teacher come to me like, I like this design thinking. How could we incorporate it with the story that they were reading? And I had to think for a while. And then I realized, well, one of the ways that we teach empathy is through reading the stories of others. So they had read this novel, and I thought, well, this is going to be perfect. So we adapted that. The article that I just found last night, it's written in 2014. It comes out of Australia, but it's really an awesome way to get started with doing some simple creation things in your class. And you can do a lot of those with remote learning. The one I thought of, I have a friend on Facebook who's recreating art challenges. So you may have seen this. She takes a picture, a painting, or a portrait, and she shows the original, and then she creates her own versions. And so in a lot of them, she becomes the subject in the painting, and she dresses up. And so it's really kind of crazy to kind of see that. But maybe we could take an art product and ask our students to recreate it at home using things they might have, maybe elbow macaroni, or maybe Play-Doh or something like that. Yeah, Lauren, it is like a cover of artwork. It's awesome. And so maybe we could do some things like that. That's great for supporting our social emotional learning with our students as well. And then we can definitely move into that reflection piece where we can have them write. Maybe we can have them do a podcast about it. Or maybe even do a reflection video with Flipgrid. So we have a lot of options there. So I would encourage you guys to really think about ways that we could begin doing that. We're talking a lot in our system. Wednesdays are called Wellness Wednesdays. Students do not have any academic work to do, but we focus on their wellness. And so maybe we can take some of these. These are usually fun and engaged. The students who have done these activities usually have a very high level of interest. Pamela talked about, connecting with the interests for our students. And this is one of the ways that I can get to know students. As a tech facilitator, I'm not with them every day like our teachers, but in helping with these challenges, I get to know what it is our students think and like. And so those are just some things. So I would encourage you to think about how we can move into that creation ability with our students. So if you have any questions, drop me a line. And I'm happy to help and give you some more ideas. So any quick questions in the chat? All right, guys, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to hand it back over to Jacqueline. Thank you guys so much. If you need help, just hit me up, okay? I'm excited to help you.
Thank you. There's just, I mean, there's so many ideas and so many things that you can share and pass along to teachers who are just like, now what do I do? Or I get a lot of questions about what do you do when the students are done earlier than the rest in your synchronous class settings? Or then I'm like, well, why are they synchronous? Or giving them these extension projects, right? Giving them some opportunities to grow and create and expand. But then also, I love the ideas and implications for how to engage that student interest, not only in what they're reading and what they're writing, but also what they're creating and how they're engaging with that content. So Brian, thank you. Pamela, thank you. We kind of wanted to round up. We know we've gone over a little bit. Thanks for sticking with us and sharing with us. I have added throughout the chat, if you have to leave, there is a feedback form available for you. But we want to kind of end not only modeling, but kind of sharing some quick hits on what we were going to call FI Connect Slam support. As a coach, you've probably done some tool slams in the past, right, at PD. This is still something you could do virtually with your staff, or you could do a shout out. So what I've asked each of our contributors today is they have 1 minute to share or highlight either a strategy, tool, or resource, something that is their go-to for helping connect with or support our staff and our students right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a 1 minute on the clock. We're each going to go, and you guys can vote on kind of what you liked, and that the prize is ultimate bragging rights. So Pamela, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to give you your 1 minute on the clock. Here you go.
Students, teachers, do you want to help your students read better? Of course you do. Do you want to help your students read better? Of course you do. What should you do? Well, just remember, rewrite is right. What should students rewrite? Well, anything they write. Why? Because students can read the words that they write. And when they reread them and edit and revise them, what they are doing is learning content, processing content, of course, finding mistakes and improving their writing, but they're improving their reading. Study after study shows this. Reading and writing are intimately connected, but what you must do is get the students to rewrite what they write in any course, any subject, any time. So just remember, rewrite is right. Thank you. Keep on reading.
You've got a couple of seconds to go. That was awesome. Thank you. So rewrite. All right. And for our next 1 minute slam, we have Brian. It does give you a 5-second countdown to get you prepared. So, oops, hang on a minute. Having a technical glitch. All right, here we go. It's going to give you 5 seconds, Brian. And away you go.
All right, guys. I'm going to introduce you to Adobe Spark. Adobe Spark is an incredible creation tool. If you look here, I've created 2 of the advertisements we use for some of our PD in Rowan Salisbury. These were put on social media to stand out and look very snazzy. So what Adobe Spark is an amazing tool that you can use to create graphics, you can create web pages, and you can create videos very easily. You can learn this extremely quickly. I would encourage you to go on your iPad or your phone to the App Store and download these. It is freemium, meaning most of anything you're going to use is free. It comes with a very cool watermark if you have the free version, but it looks pretty awesome. There is a link in the Adobe Education Exchange to lesson plans connected to Common Core.
Woo, you got it right at the dime. So that's Adobe Spark. Added some links to our chat, but again, all of this is in the PDF of the slides. And finally, Brian alluded to what I'm going to share. So I'll jump right in. This is a resource curation tool. And my timer's thinking about it. There we go. So if you are not familiar with Wakelet, again, resource curation tool, and what it does it gives you the opportunity to easily share articles, links, things that you find on social media, and putting them all in one place. You can create your multiple category buckets, and you can lay it out similar to like Pinterest, but you have more creation and curation ability. And then you can also add in things like text, some links. You can add, I've seen teachers do whole lessons from Wakelet, but as a coach, it's a great tool to just curate similar things around one topic so that you can share these with educators and they can navigate as they would like through the material. So again, it's very easy to use. Students can create with it as well. And for more on that, oh, and they just have partnered up with Flipgrid, so you can embed Flipgrid into your Wakelet. So that's all I got. All right, so thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. Now it is time for the voting. For those of you who have hung out, we would like you to take a moment, and with that Mentimeter link, go ahead and vote on what you liked. It's cheesy, the votes and points mean absolutely nothing except that we can brag about that. We did this, right? So with that Mentimeter link, feel free to vote on what was working for you and what you liked. The reason why we did this, well, it's just such an easy, wonderful thing to model and to get your staff engaged with too. It's quick hits to say what's working for you. Here's something that I'm doing. Here's something that I like. So it really does help engage your staff in kind of a silly way, but really the content is super helpful and can be really important for not only to celebrate those educators and what they're doing, but then, you know, what's happening.
Jacqueline, can I just add about Wakelet?
Sure.
I'm not trying to tell you not to support me, by the way, but Wakelet has Microsoft Immersive Reader integrated in. So it can translate documents into different languages, which I found to be really helpful with our EL students. And it has pictures of some of the more common words as well. So I would look at that as well as a great resource to use.
That's some awesome stuff. It's got some great stuff. And it looks like, Brian, you are a winner. Congratulations. Yay.
Thanks, everyone.
So again, thanks, everybody.
We're all winners.
Go ahead.
We're all winners.
Yeah. I want to special thanks to Brian and Pamela. Thank you so much for jumping in and sharing. We are all in this together and we all have wonderful things to share. So before you log out, again, thank you for those of you that hung out until the end. The survey link, let us know, again, how can you continue to support and help you out? If you haven't grabbed that PDF of links that will be shared with you in a moment, and you can find all the recordings from this session and our past FI Connect sessions on our YouTube page. We really do hope that you'll continue to connect with us with FI Connects. It is a program and project that is, it's my creation. So I plan on continuing to do this in some way, shape, or form, and I would love to know from you how this can continue to support you in the coming weeks, but then as we look forward into our, believe it or not, the next school year already. So please feel free, give me some feedback, let me know how we can continue to support you with FI Connects. The Friday Institute really does want to make sure that we're passing on realistic, tangible, important things for you. So continue to join us. And there's all the links you need. If you have any additional questions, if you've hung out, please feel free to grab the mic and ask your questions.
Jacqueline, can I just add, tomorrow and Thursday, NC Learns Together is offering PD for anyone that's interested. So that could be a great way for you to share with your staff some webinars that are done by people around North Carolina. You do have to download the NC Ties 2020 app from the Play Store, but there's a lot of great sessions going on with some really phenomenal educators, and it's 2 full days of PD. So I would encourage you to check that out if you get a chance. a lot of these are just really amazing sessions that I think you guys could benefit tremendously from.
Ryan, are those being recorded? I see Tanya added in there. She sent me a note saying she's really excited about it, but a lot of those sessions are already full.
They are. I would encourage you to go ahead and sign up on the wait list, because what's filling them up is the Zoom capacity. But I would tell you to go ahead and get waitlisted, because those that are bigger and they have wait lists, they may add additional sessions or move to a platform that can hold more than 100 or 300 people. We are asked to record those, and those would be posted usually on a YouTube channel for later on. But I'd go ahead and sign up and just check. Sometimes people don't always show up for those themes, so maybe just kind of wait in to see, but I would definitely get on the wait list.
That's great advice. We've seen that as well. A lot of people sign up for everything and then go, oh, okay, you know, I'll get the recording. So
yeah. I mean, we're doing Adobe Spark with SEL tomorrow, and we have 300 people signed up for my session, but I don't know if we'll have them all at 9 o'clock in the morning.
If there's any other questions, feel free to grab the mic, or you can drop your question in the chat. Again, thanks for hanging out with us today. I would like to thank again Pamela and Brian. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing just a wealth of ideas and inspiring us to continue supporting your teachers, supporting your kids. It's a really tumultuous time. It's hard to know what to expect next, but we know good teaching is good teaching is good teaching. And we are there for our kids, and we're there for the staff that we support. So I want to thank you very much for your time and for the hours that you spent putting this stuff together for us. And I'm hoping that a good feedback, let us know how we can continue to support you. So again, thank you so much for what you do every day. Hang in there. We're in this together. Thank you all.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Goodbye. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.